The year is 1814. London is celebrating Napoleon's defeat, but beneath the fireworks, poverty and hardship rule the streets. Away from the parades, the city's poorest struggle in places like St. Giles, a notorious slum of overcrowded, filthy tenements. Disease, hunger and cold are daily threats. Families cram into damp, windowless rooms, often below street level. The air is thick with coal smoke and sewage. For St. Giles residents, political victories mean little. Survival is a daily battle. Work is scarce. Many beg or take odd jobs to get by. Children play in muddy alleys, their futures as bleak as their surroundings. Buildings lean precariously, always at risk of collapse or fire. Yet, even here, people find small comforts, like sharing a pint of strong dark porter. This is London in 1814, a city of grand ambitions and hidden dangers. In the heart of St. Giles stands the Horseshoe Brewery, a giant of industry and a symbol of the city's love of beer. But on one autumn afternoon, this symbol would unleash a disaster no one could have imagined. The contrast between celebration and suffering would soon become tragically clear. The brewery's towering vats, filled with porter, loomed over the slum. For the poor, they were just another part of the city's machinery, until disaster struck. In a city divided by wealth and want, fate was about to tip the scales. The coming hours would reveal just how fragile life in St. Giles really was. The story of the London beer flood begins here, in the shadows of celebration. A city's triumph would soon turn to tragedy. And it all started with a single massive vat of beer. Porter was London's drink of choice, cheap, strong, and beloved by the working class. To meet demand, breweries like Muse & Coer's Horseshoe Brewery became industrial giants. The brewery's vast complex dominated Tottenham Court Road, its steam engines and pipes a marvel of the age. But its most impressive features were the colossal wooden vats, engineering wonders, held together by iron hoops. The largest stood over 22 feet high, holding more than 1 million pints. Locals and tourists alike gawked at its size, a symbol of industrial might. But these vats were under constant, invisible strain from the fermenting beer inside. The pressure was immense, pushing the limits of 19th century technology. For years, the vats held firm, but the risk was ever present. The people of St. Giles lived in the shadow of these giants, unaware of the danger brewing above them. The brewery's success depended on these vats, but so did its fate. The stage was set for disaster. All it would take was a single failure. On October 17, 1814, George Crick, a brewery clerk, noticed something wrong with the largest vat. One of its heavy iron hoops had slipped, a serious warning sign. Crick reported it, but the superintendent dismissed the danger, calling it routine. No one drained the vat or took urgent action. The workers returned to their tasks, trusting the massive structure would hold. Inside, pressure kept building, the failed hoop shifting the strain to the others. For an hour, the vat stood groaning under the force. No one realized how close they were to catastrophe. The people of St. Giles went about their day, unaware of the disaster about to erupt. A single oversight would soon unleash chaos. The countdown to disaster had begun. At 5:30, the vat exploded with a thunderous crash. Over 135,000 gallons of porter burst free, demolishing the brewery's rear wall. The waves smashed into other vats, adding their contents to the flood, over 320,000 gallons in total. A 15-foot-high torrent of beer surged into St. Giles, sweeping through narrow streets and basement homes. Houses collapsed, people were swept away or drowned in seconds. The flood destroyed 2 houses and damaged many more. In moments, a routine afternoon became a nightmare of destruction. The beer tsunami left chaos and tragedy in its wake. The beer flood struck the most vulnerable, those living in basements and flimsy homes. In one house, mourners at a child's wake were drowned as the flood filled the basement. 5 died there, including the boy's mother. Outside, a servant girl was killed when the pub wall collapsed on her. Another young girl, Hannah Bamfield, was swept away as her house collapsed. In total, 8 people, mostly women and children, lost their lives. The destruction was immense. Homes flattened, belongings ruined, streets filled with sticky, dark liquid. Survivors faced not just loss, but the overwhelming task of rebuilding. The cries of the bereaved echoed through the ruins. The flood's victims were those least able to escape. For St. Giles, the celebration of victory had turned to mourning. The true cost of the disaster was measured in lives and shattered homes. The nightmare was far from over. In the aftermath, chaos reigned. Survivors searched for loved ones amid the wreckage. Brewery workers joined rescue efforts, wading through waist-deep beer. Crowds flocked to the scene, some gawking, others scooping up beer for a free drink. Rumors spread. Some claimed a 9th victim died from drinking the flood beer. The bodies of the dead were displayed for identification, and donations were collected for funerals. Cleanup was massive beer pumped from cellars, rubble cleared, the smell lingering for weeks. The brewery faced financial ruin and public outrage. London waited to see who would be held responsible. The disaster's aftermath was as surreal as the flood itself. The city demanded answers. The inquest gripped London. Families wanted justice. The brewery owners feared ruin. Workers testified, but the jury ruled the deaths accidental, an act of God. No one was held legally responsible. The brewery was cleared, but families received no compensation. Financially crippled, Mew and Cumber petitioned Parliament for help. Parliament refunded the beer tax, saving the company from collapse. The disaster forced breweries to rethink safety. Massive wooden vats were phased out, replaced by safer materials. The flood became a warning about unchecked industrial ambition. 8 lives lost, countless others changed forever. The London beer flood remains one of history's strangest tragedies, a reminder that even beer can become deadly. Its legacy endures in the lessons learned and the lives it touched.